Just over 4 minutes before we should see the start procedures commence here in Porto in Portugal. Ready for the first of 2 races this weekend for the World Touring Car Championship on the streets of Portugal's second city. We're at the midway point of the season. This is the 6th of 11 race weekends, rounds 11 and 12 of the 22 race championship. And it's Swiss driver Alain Menu who sits on pole position. And every race he has started from pole position this year, he has won. Race 1 at Zandvoort, race 1 at Po. Both turned into wins for Alain Menu. Could it be third time lucky for him? Well, he certainly has done everything he can to put himself in the prime position. But banners all around the circuit. Força Tiago. For Tiago Monteiro, the boy from not only Portugal, but the boy from Porto itself. He is the big local hero, of course. Last year a Grand Prix driver. This year he returns to the streets of Porto, which he could never have done as a Grand Prix driver in the World Touring Car Championship. Well, in qualifying yesterday, this huge accident for Roberto Colciago, just as the checkered flag had fallen. Colciago on a flying lap caught Felix Porchero's very slow BMW right on the racing line and must have hit him at an approach speed of over 100 miles an hour. He was penalised for setting a fast time under yellow flags, penalised also for causing an avoidable accident and for remonstrating physically with a fellow driver, viz the unfortunate BMW driver. And as a result, he was penalised and should have started at the back of the grid, but the team have appealed that, and we believe that, well, in fact, Colciago is starting in on the 11th row, 22nd place on the grid, whereas he was 11th fastest in qualifying. So it looks as though he has had a 10-spot grid penalty applied. Well, here is Tiago Monteiro, and as we mentioned, he had just a dreadful time in qualifying. He is 19th, no, he's 20th on the grid, which is a very long way from where the best of the Seats are, and David, a very long way from where he would have wanted to be, but he damaged the back of the car quite badly twice in qualifying and just could not get to grips with it all. Maybe the pressure of being the local star has just unsettled him a little in qualifying.
We have seen that before, as you said, with Tom Cornell. His home race in Zandvoort, everything went wrong. It doesn't matter what happened. He had a bad qualifying, he had a bad race. It was just a bit of a total disaster area for him. And it seems to be exactly the same here for Monteiro, his home city. As much as he wants to be there, as much as he wants to be in the front and put on a good show for his local crowd, unfortunately that just hasn't happened for him so far. Maybe starting that far back, he can pass quite a lot of cars, move himself a lot further up the grid. We'll have to wait and see. Very difficult to do indeed on a street circuit. All street circuits are the same, difficult to overtake. We've seen that when we watched the race at Po earlier this year, and we've seen how difficult it was to try and get past and the incidents and accidents that happen, and it's exactly the same here at Porto. Very narrow streets, 1 or 2 wider bits, some straight bits. Will it get overtaking at the end of those straights into the chicanes and so on and so forth? Not 100% sure, but there you see the flags for the local boys saying, you know, well done, this is where we want you to be, somewhere near the front. But the front is monopolised by the blue Chevrolets. The first start we've got is a rolling start, not a standing start. That's why they're sitting side by side like that. Normally they would be slightly one behind each other.
And it will be the Chevrolets that lead the field away behind the safety car. Well, there you can see the grid roll. Andy Priaulx, 7th place, the reigning world champion. In amongst a group of BMWs is James Thompson, who set 10th fastest time, crashing as he did so in the final chicane. He wasn't the only one to damage cars either. Well, the car's now being led around by the leading car, and our race director Eduardo Freitas will allow the race to start if he thinks that the drivers have managed to keep themselves in a decent 2x2 formation, heading down to end the lap past the pits. And that will be in 4.7 kilometres time, 2.5 miles, this circuit at Porto. They come down the hill into turn 1, sweeping right-handed through turn 2. This is over a flyover, over the path from the park to the beach. And then they come down into the heavy braking area again for turn 3, which for most is a third gear. Some snatch second gear here, and then into the very sharp turn 4, first gear for everybody. Starting to climb uphill now because of the fences. The camera positions are quite high, and it looks like, in fact, it's coming downhill. It's not. It's a nice uphill grade here as they climb along the Avenida de Boa Vista, the street that gives the circuit its name, out of the Praja González Zarco and up the Avenida de Boa Vista. This is a dual carriageway. In the heyday of the racetrack, it was one wide cobbled boulevard with twin tram lines running up and down it. The single tram line now runs through the middle of the dual carriageway, where they cross over halfway up. That's turns 5 and 6, just after our first timing sector. And on board with Jörg Müller now turning through that chicane. Then at the top of the circuit, or the top of the part of the Boa Vista that they use on the circuit, turning left. This is corner 7 and up Avenida de Park, past the city park that we circle all the way around here. There's Mark Busfield, the engineering director, Eric Neff, Ray Mallock, all wearing the bow ties. It's a success mark that the RML team, Mallock's team, have used for many years, and particularly appropriate, of course, because the bow tie is the nickname for Chevrolet's own logo as well. Climbing up through 8, 9 and up to turn 10. This is all uphill, past streets lined with houses and offices. And then to turn 12, and Alain Menu, the pole sitter, climbing over this rise, braking heavily here, turning in close to the barriers because the road drops away very dramatically to the outside. Still climbing up to turns 13 and 14. The two left-handers, and you can see Thiago Monteiro, like everybody else, weaving to keep the tyres as warm as they can as we get ready to start the race. The safety car leads the field down as they start to work themselves down towards the end of the lap, coming through turn 15, which will be absolutely flat out in race trim, down to turn 16, leading up to the chicane. They should be getting into 2x2 formation now. The lead group certainly are. The top 10 or 12 are side by side. Alain Menu on the right of your picture, teammate Rob Huff to the left. They are the front row men. Menu the fastest in qualifying. Now out of turn 16, Eduardo Freitas has all the red lights still on in the left of the picture. The inset, the safety car has to pull into the pit lane. If he's happy with it, he'll radio to the safety car driver to get out the way. He is, but there will be no racing until the red lights go off. So Alain Menu and Rob Huff wheel to wheel. Menu's got the inside line to the first corner. Larini in third with Tom Coronel outside him, and Coronel didn't get as good a start as the man behind him, Gabriele Tarquini, already a lock-up from a BMW. And that was, again, the Spanish driver Porchero in trouble. Menu with Huff alongside, and Huff is going for it on the inside of turn 2. But David, it'll come back to Alain Menu for 3 and 4. Rob Huff needs to find a way back in, and fast.
There he is, he just slotted in behind there. The one thing the Chevrolet guys have been told is not to run into each other, and this is one of the bottleneck places on the circuit, the first lap. It's just so tight there, first gear to get round it. Everybody's queuing up one behind each other as they sort of queue up to get round there. But look at that, that's James Thompson trying desperately to get past Augusto Farfus with his BMW. Augusto stick into the middle of the road. You see how difficult it is to pass, because all he did was sit in the middle of the road, and James just had nowhere to go. But no doubt he'll try again at the end of this straight when it turns sharp left.
Well, Farfus got the jump on Tomo down to the first corner. The other change is that it is Tarquini that's got ahead of Tom Coronel. Further back, Jourdain battling with Stefano D'Aste to try and hold him off, the independent in the yellow BMW. I did notice in the bottleneck, Emmett O'Brien's green GR Asia Seat has managed to just hold off Thiago Monteiro as well. They were side by side on the grid. But it is Chevrolet 1, 2, 3. Menu, Huff, Larini, Tarquini, then Coronel's orange car, and Farfus inside Zanardi. It had to happen. This is turn 11. There's an escape road on the right-hand side. We're up to turn 12 now. Riding in Jörg Müller's front splitter. That's Andy Prio in front of us. But the safety car is going to have to come out, I think, because the road looks very blocked there. Yesterday we saw that the qualifying session was, or a race was stopped with a red flag. Tomo smoking heavily from perhaps a damaged left front wheel, but the marshals cleared that corner very quickly, and it's green flag at the moment now. So the yellows have been withdrawn even from sector 2, so that has now been cleared up very efficiently indeed. These guys really on top of it. But David, we've now got 2 races, everybody who was in front of that incident and everybody else.
7 cars out front. And then there's that big gap where Augusto Farfus tapped Zanardi around at turn 11, and that was just really unfortunate for Zanardi.
It was, and Farfus kept going as Zanardi was stuck trying to get out of the way. Farfus is 9th ahead of Thompson, then Stefano D'Aste, so that's the next group. But look at this, they're trying to keep it as close as they can. Just the tiniest of touches there between Rob Huff and Alan Menu as everybody else streamed away. David, the rolling start, this is the replay of Zanardi getting tagged. The rolling start has caused more accidents than it's saved so far this year, except here. They all got through the first couple of corners without the dramas we've seen on every rolling start this year, so full marks and thumbs up to all the drivers when that's the tail end of it. Zanardi getting going just ahead of our new boy Magales, but it's Menu, Huff, Larini, Tarquini, Coronel, with Ivan Muller and Prio, Jörg Muller and Augusto Farfus ahead of James Thompson. That is the top 10. Car 15 has got problems with the left front wheel, according to our timing screens, and that is James Thompson. Well, we saw it smoking heavily, and I wonder whether we'll see him in the pits. And the stewards have also notified they will be looking again at the incident between Farfus and Zanardi, and unfortunately Farfus there, I think, well, there was absolutely no overlap at all until he made contact with Alex. That may well be judged to be just a driving error on the first lap, but he may end up with a little bit of a penalty for that. I
think the other thing is that the stewards will look at it and probably come to a conclusion it was an avoidable accident, which is one of the things that they have now in their rule book. That's how they describe an incident they feel should not have happened in actual fact. So if that happens, then there will be some sort of penalty applied to Augusto Farfus. We're not sure what that'll be. That'll be down to the stewards to make a decision. But at the front, the first 3 are going away. That's the 3 Chevrolets of Menu, Huff and Larini. Next up, the Seats, Tarquini, Coronel, Ivan Muller. Then the 2 BMWs in 7th and 8th, Andy Prio and Jörg Muller, who, while I'm sure they don't want to be 7th and 8th, want to be a little bit further up, are quite happy with 7th and 8th on the basis that we'll start on the front of the grid for the next race.
Oh, here we go. Emmett O'Brien, Luca Rangoni, Maurizio Cerasoli and Miguel Freitas, and this is turn 13, in fact. Freitas, you can hear the gears not going in there. How did it all happen? Emmett O'Brien went off just in front of Chaga Montero. In fact, that's Sergio Hernandez. Colciago got into the back of Hernandez. So another multi-car pilot. That's at turn 13. That's in the 3rd sector. Now, the drivers at the moment, as you can see, coming up Avenida Boa Vista, and they are about 40 seconds away from arriving at that accident. Now, David, the marshals were here until 10 o'clock last night with a race, and we're back on site at 6 this morning getting ready for today's races. Safety car is out. So the marshals have flogged themselves so far to keep this track live and to get all the racers a chance to enjoy it in the races that they'd paid good money to come here and partake in, the support races as well as the World Championship, of course. But it means that they are going to have another very long day today.
They are, and that's one of the drivers.
Well, there's Emmett O'Brien walking away. Having been thoroughly centre-punched by Sergio Hernandez's car, and of course Hernandez we saw as well, thumped from behind by Colciago, and so those 2 cars will need craning away, and that unfortunately is one of the positions that is going to be hard to remove the cars from.
Yeah, those cars, unfortunately, there's no crane at that point, so they have to get a truck out there in order to pick the cars up and remove them on a flatbed truck.
So the car's going round slowly now to meet the safety car as the race is held in suspension. With Alan Menu going through the chicane by the pits, looking to pick up the safety car. There is Roberto Colciago. He lost a wheel, hitting the back of Sergio Hernandez's car. The door isn't staying shut either. It was a big impact. There's Emmett O'Brien, closest to us, Sergio Hernandez there. They're both okay, but their car's very firmly in the barriers and out of the way. And Not sure whether O'Brien went off there in his battle with Thiago Monteiro or not, but he was between two Seats, Thiago Monteiro and Michel Jourdain, in their little battle, and he was hit by Hernandez. Hernandez then, Colciago couldn't avoid him. It's ripped the right front corner completely off the car. And David, the mechanics already had to rebuild the entire front end of the car after qualifying. I wonder whether they've got any chance of getting him out for race 2. There's a long gap now between now and race 2, so they might have a chance, but that's the incident that took the corner off it as he clipped the back of Hernandez's car.
That's right, you can see everyone's trying to miss the incident, but unfortunately you arrive there going very quickly, knowing that you have a line to get around. You use all the road to do it, and all of a sudden when somebody takes away 2/3 of that road, there just isn't the space to be able to do what you want to do, and therefore you end up in an incident. Colciago unfortunately caught the corner at the back of the BMW, ripped his right hand front suspension off, and that's even more work for his mechanics. Remember, his mechanics had to totally rebuild the front of that car after the qualifying accident on the very last lap of qualifying yesterday. So his mechanics, no respite whatsoever. They're just going to have to get in, start work already on that car. And yes, they've got quite a lot of time this afternoon, so I'm pretty sure they'll have it put back together in time for this afternoon's second race. But in the meantime, everyone queued up behind the safety car while the marshals and the rescue crews get the two cars that are embedded into the side of the circuit. They get them out and off to a place of safety, and there is rescue crews about 40 yards away from where those two cars are. 40 yards further on, as they turn left the second time, just on the right hand side up that slip road there are a number of crews waiting to do whatever's necessary, and that side of the circuit, the top end of the circuit where it is, new part of the circuit there we see one of the 4x4 vehicles pulling that BMW back. You can see where it's hit the back of the Seat, stove the front end, and then at the back corner has been taken off by the Seat of Colciago, and there's the wheel still sitting in the middle of the road. It'd be handy to shift that before the cars get back round there. And
yes,
they're not far away. They're
a lot of debris.
This
is turn 12, so this is the corner immediately prior, and there is a lot of debris there. So everybody will have to be very careful trying to pick their way through, because glass, sharp bits of metal, bits of suspension, nuts, bolts, the odd shard of fractured upright and stuff, that's stuff you don't want in your tyres. You really do not need that in your tyres. So getting the cars out of the way is one thing, but making sure there's no debris is an entirely different thing. Now you'll notice that the lap counter has gone from the top of the screen. We are now on lap 4 of what was originally an 11-lap race. However, our timing screens are telling us there are 9 laps remaining. Now, it's in the regulations that you can add up to 2 extra laps to the race to take a count of as well, at least 2 laps behind the safety car. Anything other than that is laps lost to racing. But I was wondering whether it would be enforceable here because of the time constraints on the programme and the likelihood of safety cars on the street circuit, but it seems that is exactly what has happened. So we're now looking at a 13-lap race distance with Thiago Monteiro. Well, David, there don't seem to be many cars in front of Monteiro, and those that are a long way ahead of him. He needs to get a bit of a shuffle on and start catching the cars in front. He'll know that there'll be at least another lap behind the safety car from all the debris that's on the track that needs clearing up. But still, he doesn't want to be a long way away from the queue, because come the restart, that might be his only chance of making up a place or two.
It's always a good time to make places up on the restart, because if somebody's just not quite fully awake and not right behind somebody else and not accelerating at the same time, they leave a little bit of a gap. There's always an opportunity to try and overtake on the restart. Now then, they will all bunch up, I'm sure, before they get to the restart, because they're going to come out of turn 14 down that big long hill, and the safety car will have the lights out before it goes in, so everyone knows the safety car is coming in. It will peel off into the pit lane, and like the start of the race, the chicane just before the finish line will be opened up, and I'm pretty sure they will go straight through there, and that's how they will start the race once the safety car pulls in. Once that's happened, the chicane will be put back into place, and we'll continue to race as it was before. But We've got to wait and see how long it'll take to clear all the mess up and get everything out of the way. Once that's done, the sweeping's done, the cars are pulled to a place of safety, then they'll, as quickly as possible, let these cars go. Nobody wants to see them running around like this. Look at the grandstands, pretty full grandstands out there now, and you know, it's still 10:30 in the morning. So a lot of people here to see it, and they want to see real racing. They don't want to see them following around behind a safety car. So I'm sure the race director, as quickly as possible, will be bringing that safety car in and letting these boys get on with the extremely quick racing that they do around this street circuit here at Porto.
With Van Muller then, following Tom Coronel, just to reset the field then, it's Chevrolet 1, 2 and 3, Alan Menu, the pole sitter, ahead of Rob Huff and Nicola Larini, as they were on the grid. Gabriele Tarquini fourth, as you see Emmett O'Brien's car on the right, Sergio Hernandez on the left. Cars are out of the way. I would think that the debris will hopefully be swept up. And Eduardo Freitas' daughter, in fact, is one of the marshals up there at turn 12. So the family connections will be radioing back exactly what the state of play is. But here at turn 13, let's have a look. How bad is the debris? I think they've got the sand down, but it looks like all the debris has been removed. So the Thiago Monteiro fans should see their boy come through at racing speed maybe the next time round. We're on lap 5. And the distance there, as you can see from the lap count to the top, has now been extended to 13 laps. Now, will the race director be able to release them this time? There's a lot of weaving cars a long way apart. I don't think they'll be going green this time, but he might feel that he can throw the green at the last minute. So we may just go back to racing as they come across the start-finish line any moment now. Drivers coming past the pits, safety car lights are still on, so one more lap then to go before we get green flag racing.
And that area where the cars had their incident up at turn 13, and obviously unlucky turn 13 for some people, they've got what you said was the sand, the concrete dust, whatever it is, down there to try and soak up the fluids that were spilled. Just when you have an accident that big, there will be spilled fluid of some sort, generally water because the radiators burst because you've gone straight into either the tyre barriers or, in the case of the BMW, straight in the back of the Seat belonging to Emmett O'Brien that was parked there. So the fluids that have leaked out have to be soaked up. We can't just leave them there for the rest of the guys to slip on. So they put down this concrete dust or sand or whatever it happens to be that any one particular circuit uses. But the guys will be able to see that is there. So when they arrive at full racing speed next time, they can take the necessary adjustments just to make sure that, you know, they're not going to slip off. It's like driving on a dry road, you know what speed you can do. If it's driving on a wet road, you know to slow down. That way you won't fall off and run into a gate post or something. So, you know, they will know to look for that concrete dust and make sure they don't slip and slide on it.
Well, they're old enough and wise enough to have learned those lessons in their younger days, hopefully. And as we get ready to restart the racing then, Menu, Huff, Larini, the top three, Tarquini's fourth there. The orange car is Coronel in fifth, then Ivan Muller, Andy Prio ahead of Jörg Muller and Augusto Farfus, who is still under investigation, or will be later, for causing an accident with Alex Zanardi, or for being involved in an accident with Alex Zanardi. Let's not prejudice the jury, folks. And he's ninth ahead of James Thompson, 10th. Now, worryingly, Thompson's left front tyre was smoking a lot. And David, obviously, a couple of laps behind the safety car is a couple of laps. He doesn't have to push it under racing, but it is now going to be a 13-lap race instead of 11. So if the tracking has been knocked out and the tyres getting worn, then that will come and hurt him later in the race, and he may end up dropping down rather than going up the order, which, of course, would be his intention.
And I think you'll see the safety car slowing the guys down a little bit. Then he'll have to accelerate out of the way. But this is coming up to the corner where the incident was, this corner here. And you can see the guys coming around. They'll have seen exactly where the incident was, what's been left in the way of debris and everything else. They'll know where to be and keep out of the way. But down this hill now, the lights are still flashing away, and it's halfway down this hill, I believe, that the lights should be switched off. That's the point for it.
Getting ready to restart, are we, here in Porto? The cars are still weaving as they come through the chicane. No, they've completed, gone past the pit entry where the safety car could have pulled off. So it looks as though we are going to have another lap behind the safety car. So we're now 7 laps into the 13-lap race distance, and we have only completed 1 lap at full racing speed. Alain Menu leads from Huff, Larini, Tarquini, Coronel and Ivan Muller. And of course, where we had the field split a little by the incident with Alex Zanardi, we have now got one long line of cars, not all very close together. There are some gaps of more than a second between cars, and that's certainly not going to help anybody on their restarting. There is Alex Zanardi still going towards the tail of the field. He's currently 17th behind Olivier Tielemans, and Targa Montero there in 15th position. And we have lost 3 cars, all from that incident that brought out the safety car. Emmett O'Brien, Sergio Hernandez and Roberto Colciago are all out of action. Everybody else still going, so 22 cars on track, and the tail of which are just soon going through there. Chirasoli, Freitas, who avoided that incident, and Rangoni as well, who avoided the car of his teammate Sergio Hernandez. So the fans patiently waiting for things to get back underway. As a word or two. Well, this might be the reason then, David, that we're another lap under the safety car, getting the cars out of the escape road, which is where they were, because if a driver has a moment and needs to go up the escape road, it would be a lot safer if he met a wall of tyres rather than a wall of steel. So getting the cars out is possibly going to take us to another lap. Again, like everybody else, we are very eager to see racing back underway here. Of course, the people that want it least will be the Chevrolet trio. The people that want it most will be the rest of the field. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, depending on whether you're doing all right or need to progress just a little bit. At the moment, you mentioned on lap 1, David, Andy Priaulx and Jörg Muller might be quite happy with where they are. Well, they won't be bitterly disappointed, because 7th and 8th means that they will be 1st and 2nd on the grid of race 2. But nice juxtaposition there, nice shot, well found by the cameraman. Scrapyard right beside touring car being towed away. Let's hope it doesn't end up in there, because the GR Asia boys want to get it back and do some work to sort it out for race 2. So as again they come past the scene of the incident, it does look from here as if everybody is safely out of the way, and that at the top of the map is where it was all happening. Heading back down the hill from turn 14 through turn 15, see how close the houses are here. It's literally only the width of the pavement between the wall and the houses, and still jammed with humanity. Again they come through the chicane by the pits, the safety car still with its lights on. So I'm afraid now this is turning into a rather long drawn-out procession, not because the race director doesn't trust them to go racing, but because it's still not safe for them to do so. And Eduardo Freitas is one of those race directors who is very, very determined to allow as much racing as humanly possible, but he realizes that although these guys are professionals, they are also not just racing machines, they are human beings, and he wants to preserve their safety and the safety of the marshals as much as possible. And David, obviously it's a very fine balance to draw, but we're now, well, we might have 5 laps of racing left if we go green at the end of this lap, and so that's going to make it a very short race indeed in terms of the touring cars.
It will be a short race as in pure racing laps. The times out there, they're still using the fuel, they're still sort of wearing the tyres away, because they're all waving around desperately now to try and warm their tyres up. And we have a message on the screen now that says safety car in this lap. Now that message is for the teams. We get the same time on the screen here as the teams get. So later on in a lap, the flashing lights will go out on the safety car. The engineers all in the pit lane will have been on the radio and will have told their drivers the safety car is coming in this lap. So they'll all know to be right up behind each other, close behind those blue Chevrolets at the front, first, second and third guys. The 3 Seats up next, the 3 BMWs after that, before you get the first of the Alfa Romeos with James Thompson.
Now, having said that, there's the damage on Thompson's car. There's quite a lot there, isn't it? And I wonder whether it was, we saw that the front splitter and the nose were damaged. I wonder if that was being pushed back by the air onto the tyre. Maybe the suspension is okay, but the bodywork is, he's obviously made contact with somebody on the first lap. However, now, as the leaders slow down to pace themselves away from the safety car to get a run at the first corner, then the rest of the field starts to catch them up. And we're getting ready this time for the green flag to come out and racing to recommence at last. Lights off on the safety car coming down the hill from turn 14. 2 corners before the safety car can pull into the pit lane, and the safety car driver has got her foot buried in the boards of her Seat Altea. Aluminium, meanwhile, almost off the throttle, slowing everybody down. The pit team watching as the Chevrolet 123 leads the field. 8 laps completed at the end of this one, with 5 remaining as we get ready to go green. Yellow flag still out to the chicane, so they'll get the green flag at the exit and the start-finish line. The finish line is there, the start line a few metres further on. Green they go. So we're racing once more, and immediately Nicola Larini is trying to fend off Gabriele Tarquini. He's got the inside line into turn 1, and that is done for Tarquini's challenge, perhaps. Don't forget, Larini very heavily laden indeed, 55 kilos of success ballast. Tarquini's car is much lighter, and Tarquini has been waiting patiently for 7 laps behind the safety car, planning what he's going to do. Can he make something happen on this uphill drag that Larini admits is the toughest part of the circuit for his heavily laden Chevrolet?
We can see the cars now streaming out of that first gear corner at the bottom of the picture, all the way up the hill until they come to the crossover between the dual carriageway from one side to the other, out through their very tight little chicane indeed, and then up to the next left-hand bend, and an overtaking opportunity coming up to the left-hand bend. The cars now up, all using maximum rev. Some of them we can hear just onto the rev limiter before they have to brake to turn into this part. Now this very narrow from this point onwards up the hill until you get all the way up to turn 13, 14 where the previous incident was. Very little overtaking opportunities through here, unless you happen to be like Mr. Farfus and you happen to just sort of run into the back of somebody and turn them around, then that's an opportunity. But all those people that had dropped back are now back up again with the pack. There's no big gap that there was caused by that earlier incident when Augusto spun. That's Oliver Tielmans into the wall further back. Yes, it was Oliver Tielmans. So the Dutch driver having a torrid time of it, skidded out wide there. That's turn 10. And that has caused a couple of problems so far. It's just very dirty, the track. There's a lot of sand around in the building sites. There's a good bit of wind yesterday, and offline is pretty filthy. Coming down the hill again now, steaming down this hill out of turn 14, which is 2nd gear, up into 6th gear, and around 240 kilometers an hour as they hit the brakes, down into the chicane, which is a 1st gear entry, 2nd, grabbing 3rd by the wall at the exit there. Aluminium still leads. And yellow flag out in sector 2, that's where Tielmans' car is in turn out the exit of turn 10 between 10 and 11. So there'll be no overtaking there, but that's not really an overtaking point anyway. Augusto Farfus in 9th, right behind Jörg Müller, and he'll have to try and find a way of passing his teammates so he can get onto the front row of the grid for the 2nd race, or he will have to start 9th, because you start as you finish in race 2, barring the top 8, whose positions are reversed. And those 3 BMWs that we're looking at here, Andy Prio, Jörg Müller, Augusto Farfus, they are 1st, 2nd and 3rd in the championship. So, you know, they desperately want to be in the top 8 to get a really good point score this weekend in Porto. And unfortunately for Andy Prio, he didn't work for him at the last meeting. He scored very badly. On the other hand, both Jörg Müller and Augusto Farfus scored very well in Brno at the last meeting. So I think Andy's really wanting to make sure he takes some more points away from the 2 guys right behind him. But Jörg Müller seemed to have a bit of a problem there. He certainly slowed down. Augusto Farfus all over the back of him, and Andy was able to get himself a little bit of a gap and pull away. But we're now coming up to where the incident was with the Alfa Romeo on the side. There's the wave flags, everyone's waving the flags to say it's there, there it is. and they've got a vehicle there ready to tow it away.
As soon as the field goes, absolutely.
Are through, then someone will say to him, go now, and it'll be like take it away to a place of safety.
So he'll go into that gap on the right that you saw there. Meanwhile, as you say, yes, Augusto Farfus did close dramatically on Jürgen Müller. Now, of course, the BMWs use a normal manual gearbox. The front-wheel drive cars all have a sequential shift box with a pull-back lever to go up and a push-forward on the lever to go down the gearbox. These cars use a manual gearbox, very much as you'd find in any normal road car BMW, and it is more possible just to miss a gear. Now, of course, drivers of this caliber, you know, you can mark those on a calendar. They happen so infrequently, but it may just be that up the hill there, oh, and he's taken a mirror off. Jürgen Müller really cutting the chicane fine there to stay ahead of Farfus. So that's another one ratcheted up, clink, another mirror gone, and there's been a lot of mirrors lost on that chicane, particularly, and on a few other concrete walls. But may just have been that Müller missed a shift going up the hill, and suddenly, of course, the car effectively stops for a moment before he gets the gear and keeps going, and that's why Farfus closes a car length or two. But that's why teammates have to be very aware of each other in this situation, because Farfus could easily have hit him if he had been just a fraction closer, and so the drivers have to be ultra aware of each other.
It's just your reaction time is so quick, much quicker than the average person, so that if something happens in front of you, you can steer the car hopefully to the side and get past without actually running in the back of him. But sometimes that doesn't happen, and sometimes, unfortunately, you see incidents like we've seen before with the Emmett O'Brien's car buried, and then having the BMW unfortunately not able to miss, but running straight in the back of him.
Well, further on behind this queue, of course, you can see the red Alfa of James Thompson desperately hanging on to 10th place ahead of Stefano D'Aste. D'Aste, the yellow independent BMW driver, trying to find his way up into 10th past Thompson. Stefano D'Aste is the top independent. Pierre-Yves Courtals is 2 cars behind him, second in the independence category. And then between Courtals and third place Maurizio Cerasoli, there are Jordi Gide, Thiago Montero, Alex Zanardi and Felix Portiero. So a 4-car buffer for Courtals, but he's unlikely to be able to catch D'Aste because you've got to get by Michel Jourdain Jr. And at the moment, as we can see, there are very few overtaking opportunities being exploited here. Well, this was last lap. Jürgen Müller showing just how fine you have to cut this track, and just about 3 inches tighter than he would like to have been to that tyre stack. It's probably left a black mark down the side of the car as well. Meanwhile, with 2 laps to go, the Chevrolet roller coaster continues. 1, 2 and 3, they steam out of the chicane. Well, you see the little graphic there as the cars flash across the finish line. 1, 2, 3, the Chevrolets, then Seats 4, 5, 6, then BMWs 7, 8 and 9. David, it almost looks like a Formula One grid, team by team by team, doesn't it? But it does reflect perhaps the relative performances of the cars here this weekend. And of course, different tracks suit different cars completely differently. And so this weekend, Alan Menu said, well, why are we so quick here? Maybe it's the variety of corners. Our car is the best compromise around all of them. Whereas in Brno, certainly it was very much a BMW circuit. Luca Rangoni's overcooked it down at turn 1, but look, he's managed to hit nothing, so good job by him.
He's got himself underway again. I'm not sure that he hasn't clipped something. I think he's got a small clip on it somewhere, but Jürgen Müller's car missing the right-hand mirror, and I think he did actually clip that whole tyre stack there just a little bit heavier than he wanted to, so yes, there will be a big black mark down the side of his car. But here he is, sandwiched between Andrew Priaulx in front of him and Augusto Farfus. We were looking out of his car.
Now
we're looking back
yeah,
from Jürgen Müller's car and the BMW to Augusto Farfus behind. And you can see, you know, what you're looking at. Concrete walls, both sides of you. You are driving down a tunnel all the time with a few corners thrown in just to make life a little bit more difficult. But you were saying about, you know, the handling of the cars. Chevrolets know their car are very good on tighter, twistier circuits. And when you have a street circuit like Po, they did very well. Here at Porto, they're doing very well. So when it comes to the tight, twisty circuits, I think they're very happy with their car. If it comes to really quick circuits, I think they'll be a bit not quite so happy. So maybe, you know, if they get to Monza at the end of the year, then I think the Chevrolet is going to struggle compared to, say, the BMWs. And different circuits suit different cars, and they have had such a variety of circuits, because the last one at Brno was like a big Grand Prix circuit whereby everything was big, wide open, and there was lots of space. And all of a sudden when you got there, the BMWs just annihilated everybody. You walked away with the race and as though there was nobody else in it, and they were just head and shoulders above everybody else. And you know, that's turned around just by a change of circuit. There's nothing wrong with the cars. The cars are still as good as they were. They're all working extremely well. All the manufacturers, you know, are happy with their cars as such. But you change the circuit completely and all of a sudden you can get a different result.
Farfus with the colours of Brazil on the roof of his BMW, looking for 8th place. Now don't forget, Augusto Farfus in 9th is our championship leader. He will start race 2 from 9th place if he cannot get past Jörg Müller. If he can get past Jörg Müller and swap places for 8th, then he will not only get 1 point for this race, he will start on pole, the standing start race 2, and that doesn't quite guarantee a win, but I tell you what, it gives him 65% of it before he even engages first gear, before the lights come on. So for Farfus and for Jörg Müller, this is not just for a point in race 1, this is for a chance to get 11 points out of this weekend, instead of potentially for Farfus, maybe none at all. Because if he doesn't score in race 1, he'll be 9th on the grid in race 2, and it's possible he might not score in race 2 either, although with the standing start and front-wheel drive Chevrolets in front of him, he might fancy his chances, and Tarquini runs a little wide in 4th place. Coronel's lost 5th. So Coronel has lost 5th place to Ivan Müller, and we didn't see that happen, but that has happened, and he's ahead of Andy Prio now. So Chevrolet 1, 2 and 3. Tarquini, Ivan Müller, Coronel, and Coronel is slowing. He's ahead of Andy Prio, and this is bad news for Tom Coronel. I'm not sure that he's going to make it to the flag in good order, so the BMWs might stream past down the straight. Meanwhile, heading to the checkered flag, it's Alain Menu, Rob Huff, Nicola Larini, Tarquini alone in 4th position, and Ivan Müller in 5th. It's going to be not only a victory, not only 1-2, it's a 1-2-3 for Chevrolet, and Coronel just stays ahead of the BMWs. So Farfus does not get a point, does not get pole for race 1. He is 9th across the line, but the Chevrolet team 1-2-3 in qualifying. They must have gone to bed last night hoping A, that the disco downstairs in their hotel would stop before they had to get up. Those hopes were not realised, but B, that 1-2-3 on the grid on this tight street circuit might mean 1-2-3 in the race. And for Eric Neve there, chatting with Ricard Rydell, who is going to be driving for them in Anderstorp as well. It's a great result, a real red letter day yesterday to sweep all before them in qualifying and to replicate it here in the race again. A 1-2-3, an all Chevrolet podium. So it's another win for Alain Menu, his 3rd of the season. Rob Huff in 2nd off his best qualifying ever, 2nd position for Huff, and Nicola Larini completes the clean sweep of the podium for Chevrolet. Behind them, Tarquini 4th, Müller 5th on the last lap ahead of Tom Coronel. We'll catch up with that before race 2 and find out what happened. And the bow ties will stay on then. Congratulations from the Seat team, from the Alfa team, for the boys from Chevrolet. Oh, and on the last lap, Luis Pedro Magales' car has come to a grinding halt at the top of the circuit, and that's really tough for him. The Portuguese driver making his first World Touring Car Championship start, the 36-year-old. Well, he's had a few tough breaks so far, but he's fighting back. In fact, I think Luis Magales has stopped at the top of the circuit to wave to the crowd. This man who's fighting his own personal battle with cancer and coming back to racing after more than 20 years away. So Augusto Farfus then, 9th place for our championship leader, just behind the man you were watching, Jörg Müller, who is 8th with Andy Prio 7th. Müller will be on pole for race 2, Prio in 2nd place. That's going to be an interesting battle into the first corner and then around the circuit here at Porto. But for the moment, all the focus, of course, on our pole sitter, on our race winner. Alain Menu right up against the wall there, picking up debris on the tyres. Not sure how much those leaves will weigh, but the idea is to pick up as much rubber and other muck as you can on the tyres to make sure that the car weighs as much as it can before it comes into the pit lane. But David, with the 6 or 7 laps behind the safety car, there'll be a degree of unburnt fuel as well that they weren't anticipating. So I think there should be no real problems with minimum weight on the car.
Minimum weight's not going to be a problem. That they've got well sorted. The ride height of the front splitter is always a problem for these guys, and the idea of picking up as much rubbish on the tyres as possible is to make sure that the front of the car is sufficiently high enough off the ground. But look at that. That's the podium for the cars, and it is blue.
Yep, absolutely.
From start to finish, first, second and third.
Well, all those mechanics that were kept awake all night long in the hotel where the Chevrolet team is staying by a wedding downstairs and its resultant disco. All of that fatigue, I think, long since forgotten. Victory for Alan Menu, second for Rob Huff, third for Nicola Larini. A fantastic performance by the Chevrolet team, dominating in qualifying, dominating here in the race, and they, like all the other teams, will now be hoping that the FIA Touring Car Commission does not go changing all the weights again before the next race weekend. There seems to be an awful lot of apparent knee-jerk reaction, changing weights of cars up and down after every single race weekend. But victory 1, 2 and 3, and all Chevrolet podium. It really is a big cause for celebration, and of course still the potential of more points for all these drivers in race 2 later on this afternoon in Portugal.